Good afternoon. Today I want to talk to you about how we actually handle the major flood, the worst flood in the century, which happened in Kerala in August 2018. I was the secretary in charge of this. I was the commander-in-chief of the operation of the rescue and relief. The enormity of the task, you can just see from the video that you are just going to see for half a minute or so. It was such a complicated affair, where about 1.5 million people have to be moved from their place of residence or where they were staying to the relief camps. About 3 lakhs people who were marooned in 13 districts of the state in such a vast spread area to be rescued and then brought to a safe place. And you know today's situation of Kerala, where somebody may be living here, but his 5 sons or relatives are in various parts of the world. So the cries for help of such a magnitude used to come. The first day, the flood started on the 8th, the heavy rain, and starting on the 8th of, I think 9th morning, we set up the control room in my office room in the secretariat. And my phone number is known to a large number of people. Maybe in my phone WhatsApp box, there were kilometers of messages started coming. People were sending even their location, the location maps and everything started coming. Maybe on the 9th itself, we called the army, the navy, the home guard, the NDR, the national disaster. A lot of rescue people came with their equipments. All this has to be managed, but these wild calls, large number of calls coming from such a vast area, to manage that was a very difficult task. Fortunately, we had a small startup company who was working with us. They were under the Kerala Startup Mission. They were working with the State Disaster Management Authority in a small spatial intelligence space where in our disaster management planning, we could fix places where we need to go. This is the enormity of the task that you can see. We had 164% of flood in that 20 days in August, 164% more than the normal. We had hundreds of thousands of landslides in all this district. We have around 70% to 80% of our villages were affected by the flood. Total death toll was 450, and about 300,000 houses were damaged, or fully damaged, or partly damaged. Then we have roads, everything. It's only basically to show the enormity of the task that we need to perform over a period of time. But I would concentrate now not on the rehabilitation part of it. I would only say how we rescued and carried out the relief for a period of a month of that worst period. That's what I want to concentrate. That was the most difficult task. Rest is a physical task which we get time to carry it out. It's a time when people who are marooned, people whose life is about to be lost, making call. I distinctly remember an old man somewhere in Pathanamthitta district or Alapi, I don't remember the district, but he called from a village and called me and then said that, sir, look, I am on the first floor of my house. I am on a table. I'm hanging on, I'm catching the window top part of it, and water is down below. I have not eaten for 2 days. I need to be rescued. He says, first somebody comes, give me some food, and then take me out of this place. That image never goes from that particular image of the person I get into my mind, it never goes from him. So many of such people. My relatives, maybe many of you were in that position. The Chalakudi, of course, this area was, so many calls were coming. And then we had to know how to actually position people, how to approach exact location. You would see some area where there are thousands and thousands of calls coming. How do we actually locate a person, and how do you prioritize to send your helicopter or the Navy or the Air Force? Everybody had all this in ready, and how to direct them from my control room. That is where this spatial data intelligence platform helped us. That boys were called, and a lot of engineers from the IT department, from the secretariat who were working on this field were brought. Because there are such a large number were required, they were shifted to the next room where these centers were operating. What they were doing is at the collectorate control room. You have the collectorate control room. From this information comes, you get direct calls to the state control room. You get calls from abroad. A lot of people calls to this place. And the location has to be specified, and you have to specifically send people to where the large number of people were there. So we effectively use the resources that you have to rescue as many number of people. So that was the task that we had to perform. And we immediately got a large number of young engineers at the district level. They joined together. They were all helping us. In the collectorate control room, so many of, I don't know where some of you were there, but the other engineering students, a lot of people came. So what I saw at that time is very high level of volunteerism and youth activism. We have not requested anybody, but they were all coming. And then on the second day, the maximum flood affected places in Pathanamthitta, in Kolancheri, also so many locations that I have in mind, these huge calls were coming. We were to actually call in that is the first time it happened in India, call the fishermen. The fishermen were called in. The Kerala fishermen first was called from Kollam to Pathanamthitta to Kolancheri. We remember 4 boats and fishermen were called. They came in a lorry and they started rescuing people in the evening itself, in the night itself. Whereas the Air Force people or army guys won't move in that night to such unknown location. But the advantage of the Kerala fishermen is they were so daring. They were so active. They started rescuing people from homes. They were taking people from home to safer locations in the evening itself. Next day, we started bringing people from Trivandrum, taking people from Alappi, all the district up to Malappuram, to the nearest locations. They all moved, around 650 to 700 boats. And around 3,000 fishermen were sent into all these places. And they were all sort of logistics had to be worked out. All these logistics were worked out in my room with so many department officials. The transport department people were there to call for all the lorries. So all was done at that time on the second day. 9th onwards, we started working with the fishermen in addition to the helicopters and the army, the NDRF people on the spot. In addition to that, the Kerala police and the fire force. These are the people who are involved in this operation. This is the way we were doing, sitting there and doing. These boys, these engineers were actually spotting places like this. So, and then to send our army, Navy, and all the people who were sitting in their room, they used to carry this information, passing it on to their teams, and they used to go and rescue people. So we rescued in around maybe 8th to 22nd was the last person rescued. So these worst thing happened from 15, 16, 17, and 18. The type of flood that you saw is not on the 8th. 8, 9, 10 onwards, it was at various places in the north. 15, 14, 15, 16, 17. 4 days was the maximum rate that happened. What you see in Cochin, what you see in Chalakudi here or in your college area, all has happened in that 4 days. These 4 days, we got these calls, we arranged this, and then rescued about 300,000 people. Our fishermen alone have rescued 70,000 people. These 300 fishermen in around 650 boats. They are the biggest force. Now we call them the God's own country's own army. They were the biggest rescuers in that way. The number of rescue done by army or all those people, number may be less. When you're looking at here, even the local volunteerism, the local youth must have saved a lot of people. Out of 300,000, I would say Army and Navy and all together would have done 20, 30,000 people. Another 70,000 by these fishermen. Rest was by the local people themselves. So what I want to express to you is the type of high level of volunteerism that we have seen in the state. Now, I worked in the state for so much of time. I never thought that you could garner this much of youth to carry out such a situation. The lesson learned, the mental transformation that you undergo while carrying out this process is also very, very important. That the pictures, this can only be done, you can experience by a person who is sitting there. Everything comes to. I have to say that this number is very important information for me, that so many people started at so many people. How many more helicopters have to be requisitioned? How many more army company has to be brought in? How many lorries are required to transport them? All this we were using this technology, and this number has helped us a lot to really take very fast decision. A decision which involves so many people at the same time. This is what a complicated situation, facing a complicated situation like this you require. That needs a lot of mental balance really. When you go out of balance. I was not sleeping for days together, but still you are able to stand looking at these type of images coming from the field, you know, the type of calls that you get, the type of images which forms in you, not the video images that I'm seeing. The images of a suffering person with a marooned guy who is about to die, who was not eaten for 2 to 3 days, standing like this. This is the situation which actually one faced at that time. This was India's biggest number of people in a rescue operation, deployed from the National Disaster Response Force, Army, Navy, Air Force, all together, and the forces. Then the same way, just after this is over, that's the time when 1.5 million people came to place. They need to be fed. You see, a government or a system has its stock of materials. When you get a 1.5 million people, I remember when I was a collector or something, or a flood time, we used to store some food and everything for running a camp. When this many number comes, how do we get it? 1.5 million people was maybe on the third day, 17th, 18th, we are on 1.5 million people. They have to be fed, their essential requirement has to be met. Many of them came without, maybe with the clothes which they were wearing, which was wet, soaked. They had to be given a new cloth. All this we could manage sitting in that place, having this large number of volunteers. The way the social media worked. I mean, I have been IT secretary, I know how technology works, how much mobile penetration is there in Kerala, how much smartphone mobility, but I never thought that it was too much. Everywhere the social media people were, every citizen was active. All these active people helped and the messages moved fast. And the amount of relief material within Kerala on that 4 or 5 days that we could garner. We could come in and we opened all the centers in the district, and then using the same sort of a computer system, we moved it to locations where there is a large number. From my control room, we know how much it was going, how many lots were getting collected. All systems we are made in place in the 3rd or 4th day. And we could manage, and then this 1.5 million people, we could feed, keep them safe. And the way our health department worked to keep this place healthy. And biggest worry those days in the cabinet secretary's meeting from Delhi is that the epidemic chances that we are going to light, so to prevent the epidemic. Unfortunately, nobody died of any epidemic, you must remember, in Kerala. With this much of after flood, there was no epidemic. There was no epidemic. There was a tremendous effort by the health professionals. All the doctors of the government system, all health personnel worked together. I, as a person who worked for 33 years in government by that time, didn't know that we would be able to bring in people's voluntary effort to that level, that we could achieve. I mean, of course, our political leaders, the chief minister, all are responsible. I'm not saying they're all involved in that thing. So I would like to say to the world, the type of highest level of volunteerism that we have seen in Kerala at that time, which I, as a person commanding it at the official level, was experiencing the type of thing which I never felt. That is the thing which I want to carry to you, that Kerala is poised for that thing. Everybody knows that the Kerala social capital is very high. We know all this. But that in action, in a complicated thing, the Kerala's high social capital in action is the one which we saw. Now, another personal experience that I have, I was undergoing a transformation. I occupied various posts in government. I mostly was in developmental thing. I was a votary of development. I was industry secretary. I was IT secretary, trying to develop, trying to create more jobs. I, as a person, trying to give land to the people. Just before this flood in 2 years, I was actually sort of at the official level leading, distributing 100,000 patta to people. And where were they all? They were all into the place which is more prone to flood, either flood or landslide, or the hilltop or in the thing. So I actually personally felt this a few days that I did a lot of sin, not as a person, but in an official capacity. You have done a lot of mistakes that I felt. So one of the things is transferred me is that I should not do such things in future. I should dissuade people in doing such damage on the environment. That I realized after, say, around 15 days that I am a great eco-sinner. In my personal life, in my official life, I must have committed a lot of sin against nature. Each one of you have done that. Each one of you have done that. One decision that I took is, at least for a year, I will not buy a piece of cloth. The highest level of consumerism that we felt. All this feeling went through me. I saw the amount of, post-flood I went, I saw the amount of old clothes and plastic carried by the flood to the lower plains. They are in thousands of tons. A lot of it has moved to the sea as well. They are all the things which we consumed. So one of the lesson that I learned is we have to moderate our consumption. We have to desist from harming the nature. These are things which you can say, but when you experience is a different thing. All can say that. But when you experience this sitting in a position, there is a difference. That is what I felt in last 1 year. After that flood, I reduced my consumption a lot in terms of, this is what one can do. This is all I want to bring to your notice, your attention, this thing. Thank you.